Good evening and welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace, and here we are tonight to talk about how to fight CPS and stop taking our children. This is a live podcast, and you found me on Facebook, Fight CPS Bob Pace. And I'm broadcasting YouTube using the StreamYard application. It is live, it's also an interactive podcast. There are 4 ways you can interact with this podcast. The first way is just being in the room. You found me, you're in the room, listen, take notes. I'm here to help all you families that are fighting CPS and get your children back. I too have been involved in fighting CPS too. Now, there's emojis you can do while you're in this room. Thumbs up, hearts. Smiley faces. Those are nice. I like them. Also down below, please subscribe to my podcast and also check the notifications so you'll be notified when I'm on. Now, I'm on 14 times a week, twice a day, Monday through Sunday. I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning, Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, and again on at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour. Now, the only deviation is on every Sunday, I come on at 8 o'clock, 2 hours early, so that I can attend church with my family. And so that's the only day that I'm early at 8 o'clock on Sunday. All the other days, unless I tell you ahead of time, we're pretty much the regular time. Those are my days of operation, and I'm here. And if you didn't get your questions answered or you still had other, I'm again on twice a day. So if you missed in the morning, I'm again in the evening. And I welcome you over here over and over and over. Now, there are 4 ways I said to interact with this podcast. One way, you're already in the room. And so that's one way. The second way is, let's say you have a question or a comment about CPS. I'd like you to text that into me so that I can help you, and also the other people in the room can help you. Make sure it pertains to CPS. I'm in here to talk about the child protection system. That's why I call the agency that's entrusted to protect our children from neglect and abuse. Also, they're supposed to do, family assistance like food, education, medical, housing, clothing, and work. They're supposed to help you in those areas, especially with families in need. Furthermore, if they need to break apart your family, they're supposed to do family reunification, because the best parents are the biological parents. No other parent does a better job raising our children than biological parents. It's proven study after study after study. There's a lot of bonding with children and parents. So I'm glad you've joined me in this room, and hopefully I can help you all get your children back or keep your children by things that I did was wrong, that maybe you won't make the same mistake that I made. Now, it's important you show your name. I know some of you probably already have a name, but I'm looking for the name like Bob, Jim, Mary, Pete, Peggy, simple names. Jumping elephants or psychedelic hippopotamus or, some strange far out names is really hard to address you like that. And after your name, I'd like to know the city or the county you're in. The city or the county you're in. The city or the county. And also the state. I'm trying to do a mental picture of where the pockets of CPS that are bad or good around the country are. Now, I also ask you if you're from another country to put your city and country. Yes, there have been people that have texted in. I've had from Bangladesh. I've had from New Delhi, India. I even had from the Middle East, but I could not make out the Arabic word for your country. But I've had Africa, several countries there. I've had Liberia in the north, on the west coast, and the south, the western province in South Africa. Then Rwanda, a small country in Central East Africa near Lake Victoria. And then Mozambique above South Africa, that's on the east side, and it's opposite Madagascar, the island off the coast of Africa. Then moving up to Europe, I've had yeah, England, Scotland, Wales, part of the UK that have texted comments in. Also, I've had Denmark and Sweden. Then across the pond, I've had North America. I've had Canada, several of the provinces there, British Columbia. I've had comments from Ontario and also from Alberta and Vancouver and so forth. So I really value the input from the countries. Of course, I've had the United States, all 50 states, including Washington, D.C. I've talked to over 500 some people, or text, but I've had talk from every state, so I have a general idea of what CPS in every the state is. Then south of the border, Mexico, I've had a father looking for his daughter that were lost in Louisiana. He called in from Mexico City. Then I've had Guyana in South America. That is north of Brazil, east of Venezuela, on the east coast of South America. Then across the Pacific, I've had the land down under, Australia. Several people have sent comments from there. It may have been from the Gold Coast or one of the other states in Australia there. But it's been very interesting to have this cross-pollination of people. But one thing they all have in common is CPS has really hurt them and they're bad. And I'm afraid to tell you that they've turned into a rogue agency where they can do what they please and no one has accountability or control of them. No one has accountability or control of them. And try to be complete with your CPS case. I'd like to know what your family makeup is: husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, partners, lovers. And then how were the children? The children all from the same father, mother? Are there different mothers and fathers involved? Are you a single parent raising the children? So those are things that is kind of important. Also the ages and the sexes of the children. And then further, how were the children taken from your home if they were taken? I'd like to know that. And what your charges in detail about neglect and abuse. And then where you're at on your case at the moment. Those are some things that help me so I don't play ping pong ball and it takes forever to get to your story. The same thing goes true when you call in too. Try to be complete with your CPS case. Now, a third way is to be a guest on my podcast. And I can have up to 9 people on my podcast, a total of 10, including me. And I've had 4. Now, I have a show producer. Her name is Grace. That'll help you get on the podcast as my guest. All you need to do is email Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. And you want to email her with one of my 14 shows. All you have to do is say Sunday morning or Sunday evening or Friday morning or Friday evening. It's so simple. And then she'll send you a link. And don't lose the link. The link is to get you on StreamYard. And if you get booted off, use that link again. It'll get you back on. Also, she'll tell you what to do and say as my guest. We don't allow eating or smoking, even chewing gum or ice or candy or nuts or something like that. No snacking on there. Also, we don't use the names of the children, the social workers, or the judges. And then watch your lighting and how you're situated. It's best to use a computer. A phone is acceptable, but make sure it's a good, strong internet connection. And then we can help you out with your case and can help out other people. And you'll be able to see the comments and be able to help them too. That's the third way. Now, the fourth way is an easy one, and that is just to call in. Now, if you want to call in, I have an office number. It's 626-098-0990. And that is my direct line for my office number. And we use the application called Vonage on our phone system. So you'll be calling Vonage there. And I will answer the call during my show hours. Now, if you call before my show hours or after, leave a message, but I can't take phone calls before or after my show time. I will text you what hours you are that you can talk to me. So those are the 4 ways to be a part of my podcast. So again, I warmly welcome all of you. And there are many ways this podcast can go. I can sit here and talk about my case, or I can talk about what types of social workers there are, or I could talk about a lot of the topics. I have about 75 topics open up on tabs that I can talk about, like ICWA or ICPC or the 388 motion or the 160J. I can talk about different states and different things. You have to understand, CPS is not the same in every state. I call it the child protection system because the states have their own acronyms. Like in Arizona, it's Department of Children's Services. And like in Kentucky, it's the cabinet. In California, it's the Child Protection Services. So when I say CPS, I mean the Child Protection System. I mean all the states and all the counties and everything. So that is CPS. Now, normally at this time, I usually have some people have entered the room and have asked me to go in certain directions. I also have stories of CPS that I've found that I can talk about there, or other topics too that I can talk about there. Now I have several people, and I'm just going to check to see if they're coming tonight. One is Faye Manning, and she is a single mother from Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky, and she's been on my show a long time, and she had some great news yesterday. Okay. Let me see if I can get Faye to see what she has there. So I've contacted Faye. She is trying to get custody of her 23-year-old son, who is a special needs son. And recently, I think it was yesterday, she shared some news that after 12 years, she finally got the cabinet to respond and reopen her case again because she has a young daughter that she had to give up that was no fault of her own. And so I'm really excited for her on that. So there is Faye. Then there is also Natalie. She's from West Hollywood, California, and she has 2 children that she lost. She's a very sweet mother, and she loves to help you all out there, and she has some really great information. So hopefully she'll join us too. Lastly, I have my co-host, which is Danielle, and I've not really heard from her in a little bit. She has a lot of things going on that may have been preventing her from coming on, but she was trying to get custody of her child, who is a special needs child, and he was caught in the system when he turned 18, and they won't let him out. And he's an adult, and he wants his mother to get custody because, again, he's a special needs child. So I've contacted our 3 room regulars. Also, KK Richardson of Brooklyn, New York has some good news too. And she's got the CPS on the ropes, which is really a great thing to hear. Now, CPS is a very hard agency to deal with. It is the hardest government agency I think there really is, more harder than dealing with the IRS. And why it's so hard is they lie, they cheat, they retaliate, they're no good. And on top of that, their only interest is making money. It's $1 trillion business for the CPS to make. They are determined to make gobs of money. They give the social workers bonuses and incentives to keep children in CPS's hands. They want your child to be adopted in foster care. Now, at any time you hear a term you're not familiar with, please tell me and I'll try to help you. Please tell me and I'll try to help you. Now, so I know what a lot of you have encountered with the problems of CPS. And I know it's very hard on you because it's a very strange entity. They don't play fair, they don't like parents, and they certainly don't like family reunification. It seems lately the consensus has been that they immediately take your child when there's an allegation. And then, of course, they are trained to believe that all allegations are true and that you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Different than any other court of law. All other places you are innocent till you're proven guilty. You're innocent till you're proven guilty. And I am so know what you're going through because I didn't either. You know, you're not schooled on how to fight CPS, let alone how to do a marriage or a family or a lot of things. And we also hit hiccups. But what's happening is CPS has got a hand and they're taking our families in and kidnapping our children and traffic our children. And it's disgusting because there are a lot of cases out there that the children are being neglected or abused, and CPS do nothing about it. Faye, one of my room regulars, has been keeping track of the children in Kentucky, and she has over 30 that have been killed while they're in custody of the cabinet's hands, the CPS system in Kentucky. And she'll tell you how bad Kentucky is. It's one of the worst states in the country. So you got to be careful because you're dealing with an entity that will lie and not very transparent and will deceive you. They'll make you do things and say you're going to get this and you don't get this. Now, I've developed 5 rules, and I think I should get my rules out of the way. Rule number 1 is you need to have yourself an attorney. And I can't emphasize the importance of this. This is the same, just as difficulty as doing open heart surgery. If you have to do open heart surgery and you need your heart repaired or fixed, fighting CPS is like that. So you don't want a layman like a mechanic or a plumber or somebody there that cut open your chest and remove your heart and work on it. You want a professional doctor and has lots of experiences and knows what they're doing. Now, attorneys are the same way. There's a special kind of attorney you need. It is a family juvenile dependency attorney. Those are the areas of expertise. It's dependency law that deals with family and juveniles. And it's very important that you find that attorney. And because if you don't have a fighter in your court, you're going to lose your children. And you say, hey, wait a minute. I got a court-appointed attorney. Aren't I lucky? Well, yeah, you save a lot of money, but look what you have. You have a beginning attorney that is a criminal attorney, not necessarily dependency attorney, and they have a caseload of 30 more clients. So they're not going to be aggressive or fight so hard on them. So I'm telling you, you need to get a real attorney. Those court-appointed attorneys will sit there and lazy. They won't come out to talk to you. They maybe give you 5 minutes. They won't meet with you separately. And there's no incentive for the fight in court. They're paid by CPS and they're controlled by CPS. And they're friends with the judge and the children's attorney. You see, CPS is hoping you use a court-appointed attorney and your children use a court-appointed attorney. When they do that, they pretty much can manipulate you and do the direction you want to go. They can manipulate you and do the direction you want to go. Now, it's important that you think about that and be careful because your children are very precious to you. I know how precious these are. I lost one of my 6 children. I am a family man. I have 6 children. And I started getting involved with CPS shortly after I had lost my job through no fault of my own. And I was at age 60 at that time in life, and not too many people were enthusiastic about hiring a dinosaur. Now, I'm not a dinosaur, far from it. I feel young. I'm still healthy. I'm lucky for that. Thank God for that. But it hit me. In 2010. And for 5 years, I was dealing with these unfounded complaints that were handled by laypersons. They were my in-laws, my wife's mother, father, her 3 sisters, and her brother. Now, I did not know this at the time. I didn't discover this until much, much later. But they're the ones that orchestrated and tried to get our children. Because you see, when I got married 31 years ago, they didn't show up at her wedding. Not one of her sisters or brothers or mother showed up. That's how much they didn't care about their daughter. And, she was totally abused growing up as a child in that family. We found that out later. There's a lot of things you find out later. And so they were making these allegations, such as we didn't have clothing for them, they didn't take showers, they didn't have food, they didn't go to school. All these things that are wrong because all it showed was my grade reports, how well they're doing in school. I showed my teacher conference meetings. I showed their bedrooms, how nice and clean they are. I showed the stock cupboards and the refrigerator and where to prepare the food and how nice and clean it was. I showed their play areas and everything like that. So there's no problem at that time. I shared in my home, and I didn't know you're not supposed to allow them in. I wish I never did. But anyway, this went on for 5 years. And then in 2015, I guess the CPS agency got tired of constantly coming out and get shot down all the time. So they decided to hit me because they knew that I wasn't working. And when someone's not working or low income, they're going to attack. They're going to take advantage of the situation. So what they did is they sent a detective to find me and then follow me home. Well, not necessarily follow me and then force me to come home. And I did not know that this person would have to have a warrant to have me come home. I didn't know I didn't have to go home or even talk to them. This is the thing. You don't talk to policemen. You don't talk to social workers. Everything you use will be held against you. You need to have an attorney present during the proceedings, and the attorney will advise you what to do, because you can say the wrong thing and make the wrong thing. And so I'm telling you that that you got to really be careful with this powerful agency, because there's no one is accountable for them. There's no one supervising them. For instance, in Kentucky, there is $1 million worth of money that they don't know what they spent on. And on top of that, there's a guy being embezzled for embezzling fund in Richmond, Kentucky. So the whole state is the worst state for CPS, and it's very corrupt. It's very, very, very corrupt. And so I'm telling you, it's really important that you are careful about talking to them. Be nice to them, say yes or no answers, but don't say any more. Don't say any more. Say yes or no answers, but don't say any more. Don't know where all my regulars are. Where are you people? I guess tonight we're going to have a lonely night. I have a few people in the room, but no one's talking. And so right now we're talking about my rule number 1 about hiring an attorney and the importance of doing so. And I have an attorney. His name is Vincent W. Davis. And he's been a dependency lawyer for 35 years. And he knows how to fight CPS and has gotten the kids back. And so he has fought CPS. And, he's also a trial attorney. He's the one that produces this podcast. I want to thank him for the podcast and what he does and how he helps other people. And I've made special arrangements with him to have a consultation with him via Zoom. At the bottom of my screen, you can see a ticket running. That describes what I'm offering with Mr. Davis. And you can book a discounted Zoom consultation with Vincent Davis for up to 30 minutes for $60. All you have to do is go to https://candidly, CALENDLY.com/apps, APPTS/VWD/Bob Pace, BOBPACE. That takes you to the website, and there you can book at a discounted rate. And he will talk to you. He'll coach you. He'll tell you how you can get your children back and what to do. And those 30 minutes are very valuable. Now, if you want to hire Mr. Davis to represent you, he will talk to you about his retainer. And you can call this other number I have on the screen, 888-888-6582. That's the office. And you can hire any of the attorneys that he has there. He has something in other areas of law. And so it's very, very important that 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 you do talk to him, and as I say, my consultation is where you should start first. It's only 60 minutes for $30. It's a pretty good bargain. It's a special rate I have with him. But you got to go to the website to get that rate. The phone number, if you call in, is for his office for getting his legal representation. Now, he'll fight for you if you're Northern California or any of the 50 states. He has one case right now in Northern California, several in Southern California, and one in Oklahoma. So he's very busy, but he will accommodate you. He will accommodate you. So I'm telling you that it's very, very important that you do talk to him and you get an attorney because you don't want to lose your child, just like open heart. You got to have a professional doctor work on you. Those court-appointed attorneys will not work. If you want to do yourself pro se, that's going to be even hard because the attorneys that the CPS system has is so corrupt that they'll run right over you. They'll run right over you and you won't stand a chance. So rule number one is get an attorney and who can fight for your case. And Mr. Davis is the man. He is the man there. He's done civil lawsuits where he's won millions of dollars fighting CPS on your constitution violations or your civil rights violations. And he's won both in federal and state courts millions of dollars. So he's the real deal. So I would contact him. Make sure when you call the office, you say Bob Pace sent you. And make sure when you talk to Mr. Davis, you tell him that Bob Pace sent you. Now, that's rule number one. Rule number two is how you keep track of all your notes and your paperwork. I was really bad about this. I put them on my Post-it notes and envelopes and scratch papers and my day runner and my phone and my computer is all a hodgepodge. I think the best way that would work for you would be to get an 8.5 by 11-inch notebook, approximately 3 inches thick or thicker. That has 3-ring binder in it. And that way you can put all your papers in there. You fill it with your subject dividers, get like 20 subject dividers, and get a ream of college rule notebook paper and put that in your notebook because you need it to write on. And I find that the writing on your phone or your computer or some of the thing is hard to write with the small fonts and everything and read it. I know you can enlarge it, but then you can't see it all at once. I think a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, is really good size. Now, one of the first subject tabs you should make is called the incidents. There are many kinds of incidents that are related to your CPS case. There's incidents with the police, with the children, with family, with the friends, with the child protection system. So you want to log all those in chronicle date and time and stuff. So you start with the oldest one first and put the date and the time and the location and who you talk to. Then the second line, you want to put a description of what the incident was, a 1-sentence description, sum it up. And then what you want to do is that you want to put the outcome. What was the outcome? And if you don't have it, you can come back later. You can come back later with the outcome. And you keep doing that, log it in, and everyone, if you have one from the children or from the police, or you log them on in with the oldest one first and skip a couple lines after each incident to come back and write some notes or something. Also, you want to use a highlighter like a red, maybe a pink or a yellow would work out good. Something that you can see something and something important you want to recognize. Something important that you want to recognize. That's what I'm saying. Something important that you want to recognize. Now, other subject matters can be one for all your parenting classes you take, and you can make a list of the classes that you've taken. Also, you can make a list of all the programs you've taken too. And then what you'll want to do also is put the certificates in there, hole punch them and put them in there in that tab. Another area of the tab could be information like websites you find and all the other things that you find, names and addresses and anything that deals with CPS that will help you. You have that section. And then you have your section for the court documents. And you put the court documents in there, hole punch them and everything else. Hole punch them and everything else. And that again is another subject matter. So that notebook is yours, and you may have to make 2 of them or 3 of them because your case may go 2 or 3 years. But you'll remember everything if you have it all organized. I didn't. So that's rule number 2. Rule number 1 is get an attorney. Rule number 2 is get a notebook and organize it. Now, rule number 3 is very important because it's a couple parts here. It's first part of how someone can come in your home, and how someone can take your child in your home. Also, there's medical trafficking in there too. And so, first of all, when you encounter social workers, you don't want to say anything because anything to say will be used against you. It's very minimum, and it's also a time for you to get an attorney. That's the time you need to get an attorney. And you may have to do like I did, sold my house. I worked for my house for 40 some years, and I lost my house after all the hard work. I mean, that's a long time. And I took my hit really big. It was a beautiful home. And I still am, I have an apartment, but I still miss my home. So, I guess my room regulars are busy tonight. I guess, what is this, Friday night? Oh, it must be Friday night. Maybe they're doing Friday Night Lights football game. Oh, wait a minute. Today's Saturday. I'm totally confused. I am so confused here. Today is Saturday. That's right. It's the 14th. Friday was the 13th. So maybe it's date night. I don't know. But rule number 3 is that you should never open your door to anybody. There's been too many people shot to death lately by opening their door. There's a guy named Roger who was a black airman down in Gainesville, Florida, that shot point blank when he was on the phone to FaceTime with his girlfriend. And he died on the phone with her. And that was really sad. That was really sad. That sheriff is being prosecuted, but it took him a week to figure it out. But what he did was wrong. It was a mistaken identity. He thought there was domestic violence. He was at the wrong place. The second one was a lady that I saw on the film where she was washing some dishes, and the sheriff, who was very cocky and very overzealous, shot her 5 times in the face. And I don't know why they have to do that all the time, but they shot him 5 times in their face. And so that was a hard thing to see. That sheriff, by the way, was charged of first-degree murder and fired. His deputy is being charged too with not helping out. He kind of ignored and went along with the whole thing. So that was wrong. That was wrong. So I am really sorry to hear that, because she was someone going through a little trouble, and the police do not know how they handle it. There's been too many people answer the door and being killed. So don't answer the door. They'll come again. They'll leave you a note. They'll leave you a question. They have your phone number, email. They'll contact you. But there's no need to answer the door the first time. If they come back a second, third time, you're going to have to answer it. But hopefully you'll have an attorney by then. Hopefully you'll have an attorney, or you can contact them and say that you're represented by counsel. Now, the other thing is how children are taken from your home. There's only three ways. One, you give them permission to enter your home, which is a bad mistake because they'll search your home. Or two, a family friend or a family member opens the door for them. You want to instruct your family, never let them in. Never let them in. Because that's one way they can get in with your permission. A second way they can get in is to have domestic violence taking place. That's where people are fighting. It could be two guys, two brothers, whatever, a husband and wife. It's domestic violence is taking place. And you should never do that in front of the children. No argument in front of the children. And furthermore, if children are caught up in it being hurt, they're going to come in there. They're going to come in there and they are going to cause, they're going to settle it and be the safe to the children. So the second way they can come in, the children in imminent danger. If they're in imminent danger. So I cannot emphasize the importance of not giving up your children. The third way is if they have a warrant. It's a legal documentation that is signed by a judge. They have to go to court. Now, court isn't held on holidays or on the weekends. So if the date shows a holiday or weekend, then you know it's a bogus piece of paper. Also, it's got to be signed by a judge with a wet signature that has an embossed stamp on it so the signature is raised so they cannot forge it. They sometimes will make copies of warrants. So you got to make sure your name or the names of the people being investigated, the names of the children, the allegations, and the address, and what day they can come and what they can do. The date and time got to be on that form and what they can do, like talk to you, search the house, those kinds of things. And if you don't answer the door, you won't see the warrant. But if you're outside and they show you the warrant, read it carefully before you let them in and let them only do what's in the warrant. Now, an easy way to do it if you encounter social workers or of CPS or policemen is to tell them that you want to take a time out because you want to have a meeting with your attorney and you want to be representative. You're entitled, your civil rights through all the legal proceedings of being represented. So you have a right to request your attorney. So an easy way to diffuse it is say, can I please have your name and your phone number, and me and my attorney will get back to you. The policeman, same thing. You can also make sure you get his badge number because they will lie about their name. Also, social workers, make sure you check their ID. And you can be really nice to them and tell them you get back to them. And that's an easy way to stall some time to get an attorney. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to get an attorney. I had to sell my home to make it. You may have to do the same thing. Sell a business or home because it depends on how important your family is. Because they're very corrupt. And just like open heart surgery, you need a professional doctor work on your heart. Well, in CPS, you need a professional attorney to work on your heart. To work on getting your children back, So that's the three ways. Remember, you give permission, or there's imminent danger for the child, or they have a warrant. So don't let them in the home, and don't let them take your children or anything like that. Now, I mentioned medical trafficking. And medical trafficking is it's where you maybe take your child into emergency or urgent care because they have a high temperature or they're sick. Be careful. The hospitals now have social workers that work that are part of CPS in there, and they will take your child. They'll overhear something or interpret something and try to steal your child. You got to keep in mind, they got to support that business, a $1 trillion business. So they're going to be unscrupulous to take your child. So you got to say no to them unless they have a court warrant, and you got to make sure that you talk to an attorney when you see them. Now, the other part of medical trafficking is the part about you're going to have a baby. Now, no one should bother a mother having a baby, but social workers work in the hospital, and they will come in and excuse me. They will come in and try to take your baby, especially if you tested for drugs or something like that. Again, they need a warrant, and don't be intimidated if they bring the police in. They're just trying to intimidate you. Tell them to get out of your birthing room, that you want to have your child. And you got to be very, very careful. You got to be really, really, really careful with that being said. So I'm telling you, is that watch it with the medical trafficking, because CPS will try to do that. CPS will try to do that. So there's about 13 minutes left of my podcast. And I really would hope that someone would ask a question or something. I've talked about my rule number 3. First one was rule number 1 about the attorney. Rule number 2 was your paperwork and your notebook. Rule 3 is to don't give up your child, and don't talk to them, don't let them in your home, and so forth. Rule number 4 is an easy one. It's where you should spend 60 hours to investigate about your CPS case. You need to know the enemy. And one way to know the enemy is a Google. There's so much on the internet you can find out about CPS. It's how you phrase your questions. And I find out that if you use the city you're from, now if you're in a small city like Athens, Georgia, you may have to say Atlanta and Athens, Georgia. And then you want to use the next word, CPS. And when the CPS is put there, then you follow with your questions about your case, the steps you want, and everything. It's going to be conducive to your area. It's going to be conducive to your area. So spend 60 hours or more, and you should be able to find out a lot about your case, because there's so many questions to be answered on the internet. And if you spend a week worth investigating, it'd be really great. That's really be a great way of doing that. Now, the last rule is rule number 5, and that is where it's important that you organize your important documents of your children yourselves. Some important documents of your children are their birth certificates and their social security card, their medical records, their grade reports, those kinds of things. It's so important to have the information. Any mental tests, any doctor tests, things like that should all be gathered together and keep all together. You can also put your marriage certificate, and you can put all your your driver's license and our copies. You just need those records because, and you want them all one location. So put them in an envelope and seal it. That way you have it there. Make copies of everything in case they get stolen or get lost. And so, um, um, that is important because here's what they'll do. If you have a child and you don't ask for your birth certificate or social security number, CPS will find out, and then when your child's adopted in foster care, the foster care will be listed on the birth certificate, and they will get your children like you didn't exist. So I'm telling you, do not leave the hospital room unless you have the birth certificate and the social security number in hand. That's really, really important there. Really, really important. So those are my 5 rules. Get an attorney rule number 1. Organize a notebook number 2. Number 3, don't let them in. Don't let them take your children and watch out the medical trafficking. Rule 4 is research, research, research. And rule 5 is to gather all your important documents about your children and yourself and keep them in one place. So I've covered things that would have helped me in my case. My case was awful. It was really awful case there. Um, It started for me in 2010, and unfortunately, I lost my job through no fault of my own. And that's when my in laws decided to call in and make trouble for our family. And it's sad because I didn't know that for 5 years. And then it got really rough where CPS got frustrated and they wanted a police detective to force me to come to my home because they wanted to come into my home again. They had been in my home in the past, but they had no complaints about it. But what's happened, and they didn't know it, but my mom and dad, my dad had passed away, so my mom was not far from going. And so they sold their home, and I took up their belongings. And I was going, my dad and mom asked me, could I give it to family and friends and relatives? So I took all my belongings and did so. And um, put them um, in my home. The only problem being is that it had clutter to my home, but I only had them in one room, the living room. And there were boxes stacked and furniture stacked. And when they had me forced to come into my home, and I did not know about the warrant because they would never gone to my home and see it. Well, they went around my home looking for something. They had 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 3 social workers, 2 uniformed policemen, and the detectives, all trying to find something. And code enforcement only could come up with a loose gate bolts, and the yard needed a trimming because I had lost my job. I had no money for the landscaper who used to take care of the yard. But that's all they could come up with. The fire, they couldn't come up with anything. My smoke alarms were installed properly, and I even had fire extinguishers, and they were all charged. They worked fine, and so they couldn't find anything. And the uniformed policemen couldn't do anything, but they did break my chair. I had some white rattan furniture. They stepped on, put their dirty boots on it, and broke the bamboo from their weight. And it was sad. It was sad the animals that these people were. They're very intimidating, and my life was turned. And then they, on top of that, took my children that weren't in imminent danger. They took my children that weren't in imminent danger, and they seem to do their MO seems to do that lately. And so they had my children, and they put them in a shelter, and that shelter was really bad for them, really, 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 really bad. And it was next door to the juvenile prison, and they did not um, have a safe place for my children. They're placed more in danger there because the food was terrible. There was cockroaches. The place was dirty, and it was convenient for them because it was close to the Orange County Courthouse, the dependency court, and but it was sad. And their idea of teaching was reading books. And my kids were in the STEM program, where they'd take a science class, technology class, an engineering class, and a math class. So that was really important to them. That was really, really important to them. So I cannot emphasize um, how rough it was at the start of my case. Now, I was able to put with my family and friends, and um, my family and my family is actually put with my wife's sister and husband, and they had the kids for a couple months, but it got too much for them, and of course, the case being dragged up a really long time. Well, the social worker was also very corrupt. There was a period during the time where they were my wife's sister and her husband wanted to adopt our young daughter, who was 12 at the time. And uh, the social worker was being interrogated on the stand, and my attorney had hired Vincent Davis, was asked her what kind of parents these are and has they exhibit any domestic violence. And of course, the social worker said, oh, they're great parents. And she lied because they did have domestic violence. And then Mr. Davis brought out a folder in his briefcase that was inch thick. They had all these documents, 30 or more, and he started reading them off about all the physical domestic violence they had. And the girl turned beet red because she knows she committed perjury. She lied to on the stand that there was domestic violence. And so we were able to stop our daughter being adopted, but it didn't stop the social worker being corrupt. She in turn said, you're never going to see your daughter. You know what she did? She knew that my daughter at age 13 could be emancipated from her parents, her family. So she divorced mom and dad, divorced her two brothers, divorced her grandparents, her cousins, aunts, and uncles. Everybody. She changed her name. And then on top of that, she um, sealed her birth certificate and then got adopted into foster care. Being adopted into foster care was really tough. Really, really, really tough because we didn't see her anymore because we no longer had, she divorced us. And she didn't know at age 12. And that was the revenge the social worker took. That was revenge the social worker took. So I'm telling you that. Um, it's a hard thing to swallow, a very hard thing to swallow. But then we lost our daughter, and she's now 22. I'm heartbroken. I lost my home. Sold my home to get all the money I could for my attorney to fight to bring my family back together, but I didn't succeed. These social workers are bad, just like that social worker who revenged my daughter. That is what your typical social workers are. In fact, in Prescott, Arizona, in the year 2022, there were 8 social workers. They decided to get pink T-shirts. On the front of the T-shirts, they put professional uh, child kidnappers, and on the back they said, "Do you know where your children are at?" And they left us. I mean, they walked around Walmart, Costco, Best Buys, Target, all the big chain stores and everything, sending out a horrible message to parents. They were caught. They were fired immediately, as well as the director. And that hurt the department. But that gives you an example of what a social worker's like. You can't trust them. You cannot believe them. You cannot believe a social worker. So I want to conclude because my time's almost up. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming in this room. I'm again on tomorrow, but tomorrow is Sunday, so I'll be on at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sunday at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I cannot emphasize how important it is to um, uh, come in about your questions or anything else. So um, I want to say keep trying, keep fighting, don't give up. God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing off.